friends, fellow dreamers, fellow architects of your own destiny. Imagine, just for a moment, what your life would feel like if fear simply vanished. Not tomorrow, not after some long, hard-fought battle, but right now, by the time I finish speaking these words to you. Picture every flicker of self-doubt, every hesitant step you almost took, every invisible barrier that's ever whispered, you can't, not just quieted, but utterly gone. Not managed, not sidestepped, but completely erased. You weren't born with that knot in your stomach. No baby comes into this world afraid to reach for what it wants. Fear was a lesson taught, a program installed, often by well-meaning folks who'd long ago traded their own power for a false sense of safety. And here's the good news, the uniquely American, can-do truth. What can be installed can be uninstalled. Before we go any further, etch this into your heart. Fear isn't some unshakable force of nature like a hurricane or an earthquake. It's a product of the human mind. And what the mind creates, the mind can and absolutely will dismantle. I'm not here today to offer you feel-good platitudes or dusty old philosophies. I'm here to issue a challenge, a call to arms for your spirit. Accept it, truly embrace it, and I promise you, the entire trajectory of your life will shift, starting today. There's a silent saboteur walking among us, so clever, so insidious, it can dismantle a life's potential before a person even realizes they're under attack. It's not a lack of money. It's not a string of bad luck. It's fear. Plain and simple. Fear has kept more good people stuck in dead-end jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, than any recession. Fear has smothered more brilliant ideas, more world-changing innovations, than any prison cell ever could. Fear doesn't shout, it whispers, insidiously, disguising itself as common sense, as being realistic, as playing it safe. But don't be fooled. It's the warden of your own untapped greatness, the quiet assassin of your biggest dreams, the sworn enemy of every single success story you've ever admired. Today, I'm not aiming to entertain you. I'm not here to pat you on the back with comforting words. I'm speaking to you with the conviction of someone who has walked with giants, men who carved their names into the bedrock of this nation, men like Andrew Carnegie, who built an empire from nothing. Henry Ford, who put the world on wheels, Charles Schwab, who revolutionized industry, Thomas Edison, who illuminated our lives, and John D. Rockefeller, who fueled a new era. I saw with my own eyes that the only fundamental difference between the man who builds an empire and the one who dies looking back with a heart full of what ifs is this: the one who succeeded refused to let fear call the shots. This is your declaration of independence, right here, right now. You don't just dabble in courage, you commit to it like a vow. You don't try to manage fear, you eliminate it. You don't wait until you feel ready, because that day might never come. You act as if you were born ready. This isn't just another talk. This is your rebirth. And when our time together is up, the person who sat down to listen will not be the same one who stands up. Because today, we're making fear your servant, not your master. Let's get started. Fear doesn't barge in like an angry landlord. It's sneakier than that. It creeps in through unnoticed habits, slips in during moments of silence, and it binds you by convincing you that the ropes holding you back are actually part of your own skin. My friends, fear is a master of disguise. It doesn't hit you like a ton of bricks. It seeps into your spirit like a cold morning fog, making you forget what the warmth of the sun, the warmth of your own conviction, even feels like. It rarely introduces itself by its real name. It hides behind perfectly reasonable sounding phrases. I'm just being cautious. The timing isn't right. I need to think this through a bit more, or the classic. But what if it all goes wrong? Let me tell you, straight up, those aren't thoughts of wisdom. They are the whispers of a mind that has surrendered its command. They are the echoes of someone who has forgotten they are the captain of their own ship. I've studied the most powerful, most influential figures this world has ever seen, and I can assure you, not a single one of them was born without fear. What set them apart, what made them legends, wasn't the absence of fear, but their absolute mastery over it. Let me take you back. When I first had the privilege of learning from the great Andrew Carnegie, he didn't talk to me about steel mills or profit margins. He talked about the power of thought. He told me, his eyes blazing with intensity, the man who does not command his own mind is like a wild stallion, powerful but untamed, waiting for someone else to break him. And in that man, I saw something fear couldn't touch, an unwavering, rock-solid definiteness of purpose. You see, fear has one primary mission: to scatter your energy, to make you freeze when you should leap, to make you second-guess when you should charge forward, to make you spin your wheels in analysis paralysis until the golden opportunity you were meant to seize has vanished like smoke. It's a silent thief, and it steals far more than just your actions. It steals the very identity of the magnificent individual you were born to be. Think about it. Fear starts as a tiny flicker, a whisper of a thought, a momentary hesitation, a small seed of doubt. But if that thought isn't immediately grabbed by the throat and replaced with a stronger, more empowering one, it repeats itself. And what repeats becomes a rhythm. And what becomes a rhythm solidifies into your identity. That's how fear topples empires and crushes nations. Not with armies and weapons, but by convincing minds to surrender their power without so much as a whimper. So I have to ask you, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself, what fears have you allowed to become ingrained habits? The fear of not having enough, the fear of what other people might think or say, the fear of losing what you have, the fear of sickness, the fear of getting old, the fear of death itself. I call these the 6 ghosts of fear in Think and Grow Rich because they haunt more people, keeping them from their potential, than outright failure ever could. But the most dangerous part about these ghosts is that they often wear masks. The mask of intelligence, the mask of caution, sometimes even the mask of humility. Let me give you a real-world example. Henry Ford wasn't the most formally educated man of his day, not by a long shot. But he possessed one quality that made him a king among men far more learned than he. He flat out refused to let fear make his decisions for him. When he declared he would build an affordable automobile for the average American family, he wasn't met with cheers, he was met with ridicule. Experts said it was impossible. They said he didn't have the technical know-how. They said it had never been done before. And yet, he did it. Why? Because he slammed the door in fear's face. Ford understood a universal law most people never discover. Fear thrives and multiplies in the silence of inaction. But courage catches fire and spreads like wildfire in the heat of motion. Even the great Thomas Edison, staring down the barrel of 10,000 failed experiments, never once let fear have the last word. Why? Because he had already decided in his mind what the outcome would be, and he trusted the relentless power of repetition to get him there. He knew that the mind must be trained, disciplined like a prize fighter. He understood that fear is often just an untrained imagination running wild because it lacks a clear, compelling purpose. And so I ask you now, where in your life has fear sunk its roots? Look closely. Does it hide in your reluctance to speak your truth with boldness? Does it whisper sweet nothings of delay when you think about that big dream, the one you keep saying you want? Does it guide your hand when you find yourself settling for a life that's a pale imitation of the one you know, deep down, you were designed for? Don't make excuses for it. Don't try to explain it away. Name it, stare it down, and then, with all the force you can muster, replace it. Because here's the unvarnished truth most people won't tell you. Fear doesn't pack its bags and leave the person who tolerates its presence. It flees from the person who rejects it like a deadly poison. You don't conquer fear by wishing it would go away. You conquer it by standing taller than it, by puffing out your chest and meeting its gaze. You don't outsmart fear by tiptoeing around it. You walk straight through its shadowy illusion and discover, to your astonishment, that it was mostly smoke and mirrors all along. Charles M. Schwab, a man who rose from laborer to steel magnate, understood this principle in his bones. He once told me, Mr. Hill, this world doesn't belong to the person who tiptoes through life trying to avoid mistakes. It belongs to the one who charges forward, learning, and growing. Regardless of them, that is the raw truth of personal power. Fear will always try to shout you down, but your faith, your belief in yourself and your mission must roar louder. And that kind of faith isn't born from a fleeting moment of inspiration. It's forged in the fires of repetition. If you repeat thoughts of fear, you will live a life defined by fear. But if you repeat thoughts of power, of courage, of certainty, you will begin to radiate that power until fear itself no longer recognizes you. So let me leave you with this challenge, this call to action. Starting today, I want you to take out a piece of paper and write down every single fear that has ever paralyzed you, held you back, or made you play small. No more letting it hide behind excuses. Call it out for what it is, a lie, a phantom, a bully that only has power if you give it power. And then every single morning, you will look at that list and speak its opposite with unshakable conviction. I am not afraid of failure because I am a person of relentless execution. I do not fear criticism because my loyalty is to my vision, not to the fickle applause of the crowd. I do not fear poverty because I know that true wealth begins as a thought and multiplies through decisive action. I do not flinch in the face of uncertainty because I am the author of my own certainty. You say it until your very soul vibrates with the truth of it. You say it until fear no longer has a reserved seat at the table of your thoughts. Because the person who masters fear isn't someone who was never afraid. They are the person who, time and time again, chose to stand taller than their own doubts, taller than their own mind's chatter. And that, my friend, is where true mastery, true freedom begins. Your subconscious mind, that powerful, unseen engine running your life, it doesn't reason. It doesn't judge. It doesn't argue with you. It simply accepts and acts upon whatever you repeatedly impress upon it with belief and emotion. And right there, my friends, lies both your potential prison and your ultimate liberation. So let's shift our focus from the battlefield where fear has been winning to the command center of your mind. For if fear is the enemy, then your subconscious mind is the territory we must reclaim, and autosuggestion, the deliberate programming of your mind, is your most powerful weapon. You might not see it with your physical eyes, but this subconscious force governs every step you take, every word you utter, every result you attract into your life. It never sleeps. It never questions your instructions. It simply receives and reflects whatever it's fed through repetition, through strong emotion, and through unshakable belief. This isn't some mystical mumbo-jumbo. It's a fundamental law of your being, as real and as dependable as gravity. Let me be blunt. If you've been living in a state of fear, of lack, of constant hesitation, it's not entirely your fault. It's your programming. And if that programming was written by others, by your upbringing, your environment, past hurts, or the frightened, small-minded voices around you, then of course you've hesitated. Of course you've doubted. Of course fear has often held the reins. But here's the revolutionary, empowering truth. You, and you alone, have the power to rewrite the entire program. Let me show you how. Take a page from the playbook of Henry Ford. This titan of industry, this man who put America on wheels, repeated to himself and to anyone who would listen, without a hint of apology, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, what is that if not a powerful act of autosuggestion? And he didn't just say it once. He lived it. He breathed it. He built empires from that unwavering belief. He faced down ridicule, defied the experts, all with that conviction burning in his mind. And eventually, the world didn't just bow to his manufacturing prowess, it bowed to the sheer force of his belief. Why? Because belief, my friends, is contagious. But first, it must be intentionally installed within you. Now understand this clearly. Autosuggestion is the conscious, deliberate act of feeding your subconscious mind the beliefs you choose for it to operate from. You do this through consistent repetition, through emotionally charged statements of who you are, what your purpose is, and the unwavering faith you have in achieving it. And you do this relentlessly until the old, limiting beliefs are starved of oxygen and have no choice but to wither and die. You don't beg your subconscious to change, you command it. You don't idly wish for better thoughts. You install them with force, with rhythm, with unwavering precision. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly in the quiet of your own mind. What are the words you say to yourself when no one else is listening? That is your current reality. Do you catch yourself saying, "I'm just not ready for that"? Then your subconscious dutifully responds, "Understood." You are not ready. Do you whisper, "I'm so afraid I'm going to fail"? Then your subconscious says, "Message received." Let's play it safe and avoid all risk. Do you constantly ask, "What if this all goes terribly wrong"? Then your subconscious, trying to protect you in its own misguided way, prepares you for failure and ensures you'll miss every opportunity for things to go wonderfully right. You must, starting today, speak a new language to yourself. You must declare, "I am fearless. I execute boldly and without hesitation. I am the master of my thoughts. They do not master me. I am the architect of my belief, and I am building a masterpiece." You speak these truths daily. You write them down in bold ink. You declare them out loud with passion in your voice. Not just once or twice, but until they carve a groove so deep in your subconscious that there's simply no room left for fear to take up residence. That's how I reshaped my own life from struggle to success. That is how every great man I studied, Edison, Carnegie, Lincoln, Schwab, Ford, reshaped theirs. Do you honestly think Thomas Edison conjured the electric light bulb out of thin air with a little bit of positive thinking? No! He created it by programming his belief in its inevitability so deeply, so completely, that 10,000 failures couldn't even scratch the surface of his conviction. Each experiment that didn't work wasn't a signal to quit. For Edison, it was a green light to continue, one step closer to the solution. Why? Because the dominant thought in his mind, the one he fed relentlessly, was, "The result I seek is inevitable. I only need to persist." And how did he hold on to that thought through so much adversity? By repeating it, by visualizing the outcome, by training his subconscious to see it as already accomplished. You must do the same for your dreams. Let me give you the method. It's simple, deceptively so, but rarely followed with the unwavering discipline it requires. Every morning, the moment you wake, before the demands of the world can lay claim to your focus, you must speak aloud your chief aim in life, the identity of the person you are becoming, and your fearless command over your own mind. You must repeat with fiery conviction, "I am focused. I am powerful. I act without hesitation. My decisions are swift and final. My mission is crystal clear. My identity as a success is certain. I do not wait for the world to validate me. I validate myself." Then every night, just before you drift off to sleep, when your conscious mind begins to soften and your subconscious is most receptive, you speak these powerful truths again and again and again. Not until you're tired of saying them, but until you are fundamentally changed by them. This practice isn't optional if you're serious about transformation. It's not for the faint of heart. It's for the individual who truly desires to become unrecognizable to their former self, to rise from the ashes of past fears and sculpt their life like an artist shaping clay in their own powerful hands. The man or woman who masters autosuggestion can remove fear so completely from their operating system that hesitation itself becomes unnatural. Their mind no longer seeks excuses or escape routes. It seeks execution and achievement. Their body no longer tenses up in response to doubt. It responds to their inner command with readiness. Their words no longer reflect confusion or uncertainty. They resonate with the clear bell tone of certainty. This, my friend, is the golden key. If you want to become fearless, you must first train your internal voice to speak as if you already are. And your subconscious mind, that ever-faithful servant, will obey. It always does. It always has. The only question is, what are you consistently feeding it? Faith is the bedrock of all true power. And I'm not just talking about faith in a higher power or some abstract destiny, though those can certainly bring comfort. I'm talking about practical, working faith, the kind you build like a steel and concrete bridge between your powerful thoughts and your tangible results. Faith, in this sense, isn't some mystical fog, it's structural. It's the unshakable belief in unseen forces, not because you're naive, but because you understand the profound mechanics of your own mind. When a person believes in their mission with such white-hot intensity that no setback, no criticism, no army of doubters can turn them from their course, that person becomes downright dangerous to fear itself. Now understand this crucial point. Faith isn't a gift randomly bestowed upon a chosen few. It's not handed out at birth. It's not reserved for the lucky, the naturally strong, or the privileged. No, my friends, faith is a discipline. It's built brick by deliberate brick. You lay its foundation by making a crystal clear decision about who you are, why you are here on this earth, and what magnificent contribution you will build before your time is up. And then, day by day, you reinforce that foundation with relentless repetition of that purpose, with decisive action in its direction, and with a commitment that doesn't flinch or waver under pressure. Let me show you what I mean through the incredible life of Andrew Carnegie, the man who rose from a penniless immigrant boy to become the wealthiest industrialist in American history. He didn't start with a trust fund. He didn't inherit a sprawling empire. He started as a bobbin boy in a cotton mill, then a telegraph messenger, barely old enough to be on his own. But what he possessed, even then, was an unshakable, almost breathtaking sense of purpose. Carnegie knew his rise wouldn't be overnight, but he believed, with a certainty that defied logic, that every small opportunity seized, every day of diligent effort, was meticulously preparing him for the moment when his definite purpose would collide with massive opportunity. And when that moment arrived, he didn't hesitate. He was ready. His faith had already paved the roads. This is the incredible power of definiteness of purpose. When you choose a single, compelling target and metaphorically burn every other bridge, refusing to look back, the universe itself seems to conspire to help you. Doubt shrivels and dies in the focused light of such purpose, and fear simply cannot take root inside a man or woman who knows, with every fiber of their being, why they are alive. Most people drift through life. They change their primary aim with the changing seasons, or even with the changing headlines. One week they crave financial freedom, the next it's public recognition, the next it's just quiet comfort. But the person of purpose, they don't drift. They are fixed like a North Star, unmoved by the shifting winds of circumstance or opinion. They wake each day not to merely react to what the world throws at them, but to actively execute their plan. Now, look at the towering figure of Abraham Lincoln. His presidency was forged in the crucible of a nation tearing itself apart. The country was literally broken in two. Allies wavered, enemies grew bolder. And yet, through it all, Lincoln clung to his sacred mission. His unwavering purpose was the preservation of the Union. His profound faith was in the enduring power of liberty. He didn't know how long the terrible war would last. He couldn't foresee the depth of the sacrifice and sorrow it would demand. But he decided, early on, that the end result of preserved union and an end to slavery was absolutely non-negotiable. And he walked in that belief, day in and day out, even when the odds screamed impossibility. That's what a powerful purpose does. It straightens a person's spine in the fiercest storm. It lends them the incredible ability to stand tall when others are forced to their knees, to speak truth when others fall silent, to act decisively when others are paralyzed, waiting for permission that never comes. And make no mistake, you must now decide your purpose. Not a vague wish list of goals, not a fleeting daydream, not a fantasy scribbled down in a moment of temporary excitement, but a single, powerful sentence written in the fire of your soul that becomes the central axis around which your entire existence revolves. What will you build? Who will you become? What magnificent outcome will you refuse to leave undone? Write it down. Speak it aloud. Memorize it until it's part of your DNA. Make it the very last thing you say to yourself before sleep claims you, and the very first thing you speak into the silent stillness of the dawn. That is precisely how Charles M. Schwab rocketed through the ranks of Carnegie's vast empire. He wasn't necessarily the most brilliant technical mind in the room. But he was, without a doubt, the most decisive, the most purpose-driven. While others hesitated, analyzed, and waited for perfect conditions, Schwab acted. He didn't dabble or hedge his bets. He didn't shrink from responsibility. He consistently gave more than was asked or expected. He led teams not through forceful command, but through the infectious power of his own certainty. And that certainty flowed directly from his unwavering faith in the mission at hand, a faith so potent it infected every single person who worked under his leadership. You must cultivate that same electrifying energy. You must carry your belief not in timid whispers, but in bold, decisive movement. You must show up and give your best even when no one is applauding. You must persist when no one else sees the progress. You must keep building even when the scoreboard of life seems to indicate you are losing. Because true, unshakable faith is not built in times of ease and comfort. It is forged in the heat of resistance. It is made real not by cozy reassurances, but by continued, relentless execution, even when fear is hissing its poisonous doubts in your ear. And here's the final, unvarnished truth of this section. You cannot fake faith. You cannot act your way into genuine belief. You must earn it day by day, through decisions made in the quiet of your own resolve, through daily rituals that demand excellence from yourself, through speech that reflects unwavering clarity, even when the path ahead is shrouded in fog. Do this consistently and without fail, and fear becomes utterly irrelevant. It may knock on your door, but you won't even hear it. You'll be too busy executing your grand design. Understand this with absolute clarity. Indecision is the rich, fertile soil in which fear loves to grow. Every single hesitation you allow, every nagging question you leave unanswered in your own mind, every quiet, half-hearted maybe you whisper to yourself is like a tiny crack in your foundation, a crack through which the insidious waters of doubt begin to seep in. Fear doesn't typically begin with a catastrophic failure. It begins with the subtle, creeping paralysis of refusing to choose. A man or woman who cannot make a firm decision is a person who cannot rise to their full potential. They are like a ship without a rudder, tossed about at the mercy of every current, every changing opinion, every shift in the wind. Their precious energy is scattered. Their willpower is diluted. They wait. And while they wait, their future, the one they were meant to create, is stolen from them, one indecisive day at a time. But the person who decides firmly, with conviction, becomes something else entirely, a force to be reckoned with. Let me tell you again about Henry Ford. When he set out with the audacious goal to build a motor car that the average American family could afford, he was met not with encouragement, but with widespread laughter and skepticism. His own engineers, the very people he hired for their expertise, called his vision for an 8-cylinder engine cast in a single block impossible. It simply cannot be done, they insisted. And what was Ford's unwavering reply? Produce it anyway, not just once, not twice. But every single time they came back to him with news of failure, he sent them right back to the drawing board with the same calm, firm command: produce it anyway. That, my friends, is not mere optimism. That is not blind, irrational belief. That is the raw, unadulterated power of decision. A decision so firm, so unshakable, that it literally bends reality to match its intensity. And that revolutionary engine was eventually built, not by chance or luck, but by relentless, unwavering command. Now ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you made a decision with that kind of absolute finality? Most people, sadly, do not. They dance around commitment. They try things, but they never fully burn the bridge behind them. They entertain their loftiest goals while secretly, perhaps even unconsciously, keeping a back door open for escape, just in case. And as long as that escape hatch exists, fear has a cozy place to live and thrive in their minds. You must understand this fundamental truth. Decisiveness isn't about being right 100% of the time. It's about being 100% committed. A decision made with full, unwavering belief will propel you much farther, much faster, than 1,000 clever hesitations, even if that decision isn't perfect. Why? Because the universe and your own subconscious mind favors motion. Indecision is the enemy of motion. It creates stagnation and invites fear. Let me speak plainly. The most spectacularly successful individuals I had the privilege to study, Ford, Edison, Carnegie, Schwab, they all shared this one crucial characteristic. When they made up their minds about something, they moved. And when they moved, they didn't waste time looking back or second guessing. Thomas Edison, as we know, attempted over 10,000 times to perfect the incandescent light bulb. That's 10,000 distinct decisions to try again. 10,000 deliberate acts of movement in the face of persistent uncertainty and countless failures. Each one of those decisions wasn't small. Each was a decisive blow struck against the encroaching forces of doubt. Edison didn't conduct a public opinion poll to see if his invention was feasible. He decided it was, and then he acted relentlessly until the world had no choice but to believe what he had already accepted as an accomplished fact in his own mind. Decision is an act of pure creation. It creates momentum where there was inertia. It creates clarity where there was fog. It creates and solidifies identity. And here is the spiritual law, the psychological principle that underpins it. A person who decides unequivocally who they are and then lives consistently according to that decision becomes virtually immune to the debilitating power of fear. They may still feel the sensation of fear, but it cannot lead them, it cannot control them, because their choice, their commitment, has already been made, and that choice becomes an impenetrable fortress. Charles M. Schwab once again rose to prominence not by endlessly debating options, but by making decisions swiftly and then standing firmly behind them. Andrew Carnegie trusted Schwab with immense responsibility, not because he was the most technically proficient, but because he moved. While others were still talking, Schwab was acting. While others were meticulously planning, Schwab was producing results. So I asked you directly, what decision have you been putting off? What truth about yourself or your path have you postponed acknowledging? What more powerful version of yourself have you refused to fully step into and claim? Because indecision isn't harmless, it's the slow, quiet death of your destiny. And fear uses it like a surgeon's scalpel, expertly cutting away at your potential, one tiny hesitation at a time. Say this with me now, out loud. Wherever you are, I decide quickly. I move without apology. I do not retreat. My word is final, because I trust the man or woman who speaks it. Let these words carve themselves into the very fabric of your mind. Say them often, with feeling and conviction, because each time you repeat that new identity, you replace the version of yourself that waited and hesitated with the one who leads and creates. Let me be even more direct. Every single time you hesitate, you are training your subconscious mind to question your resolve. Every time you delay taking action, you are whispering to your deeper mind, my will is not entirely trustworthy. But every time you decide and then immediately act on that decision, you are training your subconscious to affirm, this person means what they say. This person follows through, and that consistent training is precisely how unshakable self-command is built. So from this moment forward, you are no longer a person who waits for perfect conditions. You are a person who chooses. Even when the path is unclear, even when uncertainty looms, even when the crowd around you wavers and expresses doubt, you choose, because you are the architect of your life. And the master builder doesn't ask the bricks for their permission. He lays them firmly and decisively anyway. The man or woman who truly desires to become fearless must first understand this profound truth. Fear is not a singular event. It is a deeply ingrained habit. It's not something that simply materializes out of thin air when external conditions are unfavorable. No, fear is a pattern, a conditioned response, born of countless repetitions of unchallenged negative thoughts, installed over years, often without your conscious consent. And just like any other habit, no matter how deeply entrenched, it can be rewired, overwritten, and ultimately replaced if you are willing to apply even greater repetition in the direction of strength, courage, and unwavering resolve. Let us examine what this kind of powerful repetition truly means. It's not the mindless, robotic repeating of tasks. It is the deliberate, conscious imprinting of a new, more powerful identity through the daily, disciplined use of your thought processes. This was the absolute cornerstone of my teachings, and I refer to it by many names: autosuggestion, definiteness of purpose, and most fundamentally, thought control. But let's not get lost in abstract terms. Let me show you, through concrete examples, how this very principle operated in the minds of the greatest, most impactful individuals I ever had the honor to study. Andrew Carnegie, the man whose extraordinary wisdom lay the very foundation for all of my life's work on success, did not spring from a lineage of wealth or privilege. He was born into struggle, into a life of quiet hardship, into what the world would readily label as severe disadvantage. But Carnegie understood a secret that very few people ever grasp in its entirety: the mind, once it is firmly fixed upon a clear, definite aim, will begin to attract to itself every condition, every resource, every ally necessary for the fulfillment of that aim. And so, every single morning, without fail, he spoke his great aim aloud. He repeated the identity of the man he had irrevocably decided to become until the very walls of his mind no longer allowed even a whisper of doubt to enter. Carnegie would often say, with profound conviction, "I am not merely building a financial fortune. I am building a man who is worthy of one." Do you grasp the immense significance of that distinction? You don't speak affirmations just to feel a little better in the moment. You don't recite them to impress other people. You speak them with deep emotion and unwavering belief, because your subconscious mind implicitly believes whatever it hears repeated most often and with the greatest intensity. And therefore, you must relentlessly feed it thoughts of power, of capability, of certainty, until it no longer recognizes fear as a viable option, until fear simply has no place to reside. Now consider Thomas Edison, another American icon. He famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That wasn't just a clever turn of phrase for the newspapers. That was a deeply ingrained ritual of thought, a testament to his mental discipline. Edison did not entertain the concept of failure because he had rehearsed success, visualized the desired outcome, so frequently and so vividly in the laboratory of his mind that failure, as the final verdict, could find no foothold. He awoke each day, regardless of the previous day's setbacks or non-results, and stepped into his workshop with the absolute certainty that something magnificent was forming, that he was moving closer, even if the rest of the world could not yet see it. That is the habit of thought I am urging you, compelling you to install within yourself. A belief so deeply etched into the core of your identity that fear literally cannot survive in your system. Not because you will never feel a flicker of it, but because your dominant, chosen thoughts will leave no room, no oxygen, for it to grow. Let me offer you the master tool, repetition. It is the hand that chisels away the old, limiting self and sculpts the new, empowered mind. And I'm not just talking about the repetition of words. I mean the repetition of empowering behavior, the repetition of a confident posture, the repetition of unwavering discipline in your daily habits, until the old, fearful patterns finally break and crumble under the sheer weight of the new, stronger ones. I advised my readers then, and I advise you now, with all the earnestness I possess, to begin each and every morning with the following unwavering ritual. First, a clear, concise written statement of your definite chief aim in life. Second, a vocal declaration of that aim, spoken aloud with genuine emotion and conviction. Third, a moment of powerful visualization, seeing yourself vividly as the person who has already achieved the grand purpose, feeling the emotions of that success. And finally, a silent, solemn vow: I do not flinch. I do not fold. I do not entertain fear in any of its disguises. These for X, performed consistently, day in and day out, with unwavering faith and deep emotion, will begin to restructure the very pathways of your subconscious mind. They will form new, superhighway grooves in your thinking, and those grooves will become your mind's default roads. And once those roads are paved with power and certainty, Your thoughts will begin to travel them automatically, effortlessly. This is precisely what happened with Henry Ford. He wasn't the most formally educated man, nor the most eloquent speaker. But he had developed a system, a mental factory, if you will, that consistently produced unshakable certainty. When asked how he intended to solve a problem so complex that it baffled experts, he would calmly state, "I do not need to know the answer myself right now. I can summon to my mind, or gather to my team, any expert, any piece of knowledge I require." The unwavering belief that the solution exists and is attainable is already enough. Do you see the profound implication of that mindset? He had already surgically removed fear from the equation because in his mental framework, failure simply had no place. He didn't fear the unknown. He confidently assumed that clarity and solutions would arrive when needed, and they did, time and time again. And so I ask you now, with utmost seriousness, what are you rehearsing in the private theater of your mind each day when no one is watching? When the world outside is silent, what words do you whisper to yourself? If those words are laced with doubt, you are actively programming yourself for failure. If those words are soaked in fear, you are meticulously building an identity of hesitation and timidity. And if those words are careless, scattered, unfocused, or merely reactive to external events, then your life will inevitably mirror that same chaos and lack of direction. So I instruct you now, with all the authority of one who has seen these principles transform lives, take absolute command of your internal dialogue. Create a script, a personal manifesto that is worthy of the magnificent individual you are choosing to become. And then speak it loudly, speak it daily, speak it repeatedly, and declare, "I am calm and centered in the midst of uncertainty. I am steady and composed under pressure. I am decisive and clear-headed in the face of doubt. I do not fear the outcome, for I am actively shaping it." Let those powerful lines become your impenetrable armor. And if they feel a little strange or unnatural at first, good. That is a clear sign that you are in the process of installing a new, more powerful identity. Speak them again. Speak them until they feel as natural as breathing. Speak them until they become you. Remember, the fear you feel today is not merely the result of this present moment. It is the accumulated result of every moment that came before it, every negative thought you failed to challenge, every limiting belief you accepted without rigorous testing. But today, right now, that changes. From this day forward, you will speak like a person who does not negotiate with fear. You will walk like a person who commands their own mind with authority. You will repeat thoughts of power, of courage, of absolute certainty, until power itself becomes your natural rhythm, and the old, familiar fear, deprived of its nourishment, will have no choice but to wither and die from starvation. Let us now continue to the next crucial phase and explore what happens when your entire life is built upon this new, unshakable internal system. Shall we? Once a man or woman has begun the transformative process of reprogramming their mind through focused repetition, they must take the next, perhaps even more critical, step. They must vigilantly guard the environment of their thoughts. Let me state this with unwavering clarity. No positive thought, no empowering affirmation is truly safe if the environment in which your mind operates is left unguarded. Fear, much like a cunning thief in the dead of night, often enters silently and unseen. And more often than not, it doesn't originate from within your own mind. It seeps in through the words, the doubts, the anxieties, and the limiting energies of other people. I first discovered this profound truth in my earliest, most formative conversations with the great Andrew Carnegie. He told me, his words carrying the weight of experience, if you place a mind that is weak or uncertain in the constant company of stronger, more focused minds, that weaker mind will either be forced to rise to their level or it will retreat, wither and rot. But, he cautioned, if those stronger minds are not themselves aligned with positive, constructive principles, the result is not elevation, but rather confusion and contamination. From that powerful statement, I began to meticulously study not only the internal habits of great achievers, but also the external environments that consciously and deliberately built around themselves. Let me share some examples so that you may understand this principle with absolute clarity. Henry Ford, who, as we've discussed, was initially ridiculed and mocked for his unwavering belief in an affordable automobile for the common man, was often asked, "Mr. Ford, how did you possibly continue when the newspapers, the financiers, even some of your own trusted men began to doubt your vision?" His answer was as profound as it was simple, because I didn't invite them into my mind. Ford understood a fundamental principle that you must now accept as an unshakable law of success. Your mind is sacred ground, and not every voice, not every opinion, deserves an invitation to enter. He made it a point to surround himself only with those individuals who could add value to his vision, who share his enthusiasm, or who at least respected his determination. And when doubt inevitably arose, as it always does when something truly great is being attempted, he didn't turn to endless conversation or debate. He turned inward, to quiet introspection, to reconnection with his core purpose. He didn't argue with the naysayers, he out-executed them. Likewise, Thomas Edison, though a man who certainly valued collaboration and teamwork, was utterly ruthless in his selection of those who were allowed into his inner circle and, most importantly, into his creative laboratories. He tolerated absolutely no mockery of his experiments, no matter how outlandish they might have seemed at the time. He allowed no cynicism, no whispers of "it can't be done," to permeate the atmosphere where his revolutionary dreams were being painstakingly brought into reality. Why was he so strict? Because he knew, with the certainty of genius, that one sarcastic remark, one ill-timed expression of doubt from a respected colleague, could potentially unravel hours, even days, of focused, creative effort. The subconscious mind, though incredibly powerful, is also deeply impressionable. You can feed it empowering thoughts all morning through affirmations and focused repetition. But if you then walk into a room filled with gossip, sarcasm, negativity, and low ambition, you are effectively contaminating the carefully cultivated atmosphere of your mind. Let us return to Charles M. Schwab, a man who built towering steel empires and commanded the unwavering loyalty of entire industries. He once confided in me that the single most important decision a person makes each day is not what they will do, but rather, whom they will listen to. Schwab deliberately surrounded himself with clarity, not just with raw intelligence, not merely with technical skill, but with people who possessed and projected clarity of thought and purpose. He wanted no part in the endless litany of the world's complaints. He had absolutely no interest in voices that constantly predicted failure or focused on obstacles. If a man or woman could not speak with genuine belief in their own potential and in the possibility of success, Schwab simply would not grant them his valuable attention. Now, you must ask yourself, with brutal honesty, who have you allowed to have too much access to the sacred space of your subconscious mind? Whose voice do you hear echoing in your head when fear begins to speak? Is it truly your own, or is it the lingering ghost of a parent who unknowingly doubted your capabilities? Is it a friend who failed in their own endeavors and now subtly mocks or discourages your success? Is it a former teacher who, perhaps unintentionally, whispered words of mediocrity into your young and impressionable spirit? You must become absolutely ruthless in this internal audit. Not cruel, but unyieldingly decisive. This is the high-level mental discipline required for achieving any measure of greatness, to filter your influences as carefully and as diligently as you would protect your most valuable financial assets. Because truly, your attention is your greatest, most precious currency. Would you carelessly leave a pile of gold coins scattered on a busy public street? Then why on earth would you leave the gates of your mind wide open to any passerby with an unsolicited opinion or a dose of negativity? There are individuals who, with every sentence they utter, seem to drain your belief, your energy, your enthusiasm. There are voices that sound perfectly reasonable on the surface, but subtly hide a poison of doubt and limitation. They mock ambition as unrealistic. They worship at the altar of comfort and playing it safe. They cleverly disguise their own fear as logic and attempt to label your grand vision as impractical or foolish. These people are not your advisors. They are, whether they realize it or not, saboteurs of your potential. And they must be decisively, though perhaps quietly, removed from your intimate mental circle. Let me show you how to do this effectively. First, audit your daily conversations. Who consistently lifts you up? Who reinforces the new, powerful identity you are so diligently building? And conversely, who, even subtly, causes that old familiar feeling of doubt or anxiety to rise within you? Second, fiercely protect your periods of silence and introspection. Before you even begin your day and engage with the world, spend dedicated time in complete thought control. Speak your empowering script. Rehearse your affirmations. Fortify your mental armor and ensure it is sealed tight before any external voice is allowed to penetrate. Third, refuse to endlessly explain or justify your mission to those who are not equipped to understand or support it. The more you attempt to explain yourself to doubters, the more you inadvertently weaken your own internal certainty. Share your aims and ambitions only with those trusted few who can genuinely help you build them. To all others, offer polite, dignified silence. Fourth, create a daily ritual of mental and emotional alignment. Each evening, before sleep, return to your core vision. Reconnect with your definite chief purpose. Review your actions and progress for the day. And consciously rebuild any part of your belief system that the world, with its negativity, may have tried to erode during the day. This is not arrogance. This is non-negotiable self-command. Remember the example of Abraham Lincoln. Though widely known for his profound kindness and empathy, he was also a man of deep, strategic silence. He did not waste precious words engaging every critic. He did not feel compelled to defend every single decision he made. He carried within him a powerful stillness, a centeredness that often unnerved his opponents because it emanated not from ego or defensiveness, but from an unshakable clarity of mind and purpose. That same profound clarity is now your goal. And it begins with the unwavering recognition that your mind must be treated like an impregnable fortress, not like an open public hallway. Let this be your guiding rule from this day forward. If they do not sharpen my belief, if they do not elevate my thinking, if they do not align with my highest purpose, they do not get access to my mind. Now say this aloud with me. With conviction, I do not allow fear or negativity into my sacred circle. My subconscious mind is a sanctuary, and I protect it with unwavering precision. My mental atmosphere is pure, powerful, and perfectly aligned with my highest aspirations. Speak these truths until they no longer feel like defensive measures, but rather like non-negotiable standards of living. And when you live consistently by those high standards, fear begins to suffocate. It loses its allies. It loses its entry points. It loses the chorus of external voices it once cunningly used to weaken your spine and dilute your resolve. Because now your mind is clean. Now your belief is sealed and protected. Now your focus is forged like steel, and your inner fortress can no longer be breached. Let us proceed to the next vital part, where you will learn to move into decisive action without a moment's hesitation. For the ultimate undisputed enemy of fear is motion. Shall we? There is a truth as ancient as the mountains, and yet as urgent and vital as your very next breath. Fear simply cannot coexist in the presence of decisive, purposeful action. While many well-meaning people attempt to think their way out of fear, to analyze it into submission, the true builders, the producers, the titans of industry and innovation, they know a deeper, more powerful law. Fear cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be negotiated away. It can only be overrun by immediate, overwhelming action. Let me share with you what the great Andrew Carnegie once revealed to me in a private moment of startling, unvarnished clarity. He said, his eyes intense with the wisdom of a lifetime of achievement, Mr. Hill, the most effective way to utterly destroy fear is to act so quickly, so decisively, that it simply has no time to speak, no opportunity to take root. This, I later discovered, It's the golden thread woven through every single story of remarkable greatness I have ever documented, decisive, forward movement in the face of uncertainty. Let us consider Henry Ford once more. When others around him hesitated, paralyzed by what-ifs, Ford built. When others endlessly debated the feasibility of his vision, he was busy constructing assembly lines. When the so-called experts confidently declared that his ideas couldn't be done, he acted as if they had already been accomplished. Ford was not, by any means, immune to the sensation of fear. No human being is. But he had discovered and mastered a profound secret that most people unfortunately never stumble upon. You do not wait for the feeling of fear to magically disappear before you act. You move despite its presence. And here's the critical reason why this strategy is so incredibly effective. Fear feeds on inactivity. It breeds and multiplies in stillness. It gains strength and power in every moment of delay. Every time you wait, every time you hesitate, every time you postpone action, you are essentially giving fear a megaphone and an invitation to whisper its debilitating poison into your ear. But when you move, even if it's clumsily at first, even if it's imperfectly, you cut off fear's oxygen supply. You silence its insidious voice. You teach your subconscious mind this undeniable, empowering lesson: I lead, and fear is forced to follow, or better yet, to flee. Let us pause here for a moment and reflect on the extraordinary case of Thomas Edison. This was not a man given to endless, navel-gazing contemplation. He was a man of relentless, tireless iteration. When asked about his thousands upon thousands of so-called failures in the arduous process of inventing the practical electric light bulb, he didn't weep or express regret. He famously replied, with a twinkle in his eye, "I have not failed. I've simply found 10,000 ways that won't work." Now, why would a man view such persistent lack of desired results not as failure, but as valuable information? Because he never, ever stopped moving. The very moment one approach proved fruitless, he was already acting on the next idea, the next experiment. That constant forward movement, that unwavering, driving thrust, effectively kept fear from ever building a nest in his mind. You may be wondering, this sounds great for historical giants, but how do I apply this powerful principle to my own, everyday life? Let me give you a clear, actionable pattern. First, and most importantly, do not wait until you feel ready. Read that sentence again and let it sink deep into your consciousness. Readiness is a byproduct of movement, not a prerequisite for it. The person who waits for courage to arrive before they act will likely wait forever. Courage doesn't show up in the quiet of contemplation. It arrives like a welcome cavalry in the heat and dust of motion. Second, dramatically shorten the space, the time lag between a good idea and decisive action. When your mind, your intuition, offers you a bold thought and idea to speak up, to write that proposal, to build that prototype, to reach out and make that connection, you must train yourself to act on it within moments, if possible. The longer you wait, the louder and more persuasive the voice of fear will inevitably grow. Third, measure your success not by the immediate outcome, but by your integrity to action. Did you move? Did you execute what you set out to do? Then you won that round. For every action taken, no matter how small, is a powerful vote cast against hesitation and a definitive step toward forging the new, fearless identity you seek. Charles M. Schwab lived by this very law of immediate action. His meteoric rise in Carnegie's steel empire wasn't solely due to his knowledge or technical skill. It was, in large part, due to his astonishing speed of execution. While others were still debating the pros and cons, Schwab had already decided. While others were meticulously crafting perfect plans, Schwab was already acting and producing results. And because of that bias for action, opportunity didn't just knock on his door, it actively sought him out. There is a distinct rhythm to greatness, my friends, and that rhythm is consistent, purposeful motion. Let me offer you a stark contrast. The average person hesitates. They vividly imagine rejection. They mentally rehearse scenarios of defeat. They seek an unattainable perfection before they even dare to begin. And in doing so, with the best of intentions, they inadvertently feed the very fear they so desperately wish to conquer. But the builder, the creator, the achiever, the builder begins. They understand deep in their bones that motion itself creates clarity. They know that taking even one small step forward often opens up new paths and reveals solutions that simply cannot be seen while standing still. They know that meaningful progress is not born from thought alone. It is born from the powerful, alchemical fusion of thought and decisive deed. And this, my friends, is why so many people remain trapped in frustrating cycles of mediocrity because they refuse to move while they still feel afraid. Now, I must tell you this with absolute candor. There will be no genuine transformation without some measure of discomfort. Fear does not politely excuse itself and leave when you ask it to. It doesn't retreat at the mere sound of your well-laid plans. It retreats, defeated and demoralized, at the sound of your footsteps, when you move resolutely in the direction of your clearly defined aim, regardless of any internal resistance you might feel. This is the challenging but rewarding path forged by giants like Abraham Lincoln. In the darkest, most desperate hours of the Civil War, when the very fabric of the nation was torn asunder and blood stained the land, he did not allow fear to freeze him into inaction. He acted. He spoke with courage. He wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, not because he was blissfully confident of a smooth and easy outcome, but because the sacred mission demanded action. And that, my friends, is the high standard you must now wholeheartedly accept for your own life. Let your mission, your why, become louder and more compelling than your hesitation. Let your profound sense of purpose rise above your tendency to pause and overthink. Let your emerging identity as a builder, a creator, and achiever silence every insidious whisper of doubt. Because action is not just something you do, it is, fundamentally, who you become. Each time you move decisively, you are teaching your subconscious mind, I am the kind of person who acts. Each time you step forward, even when riddled with uncertainty, you're actively rewiring your belief system for success. Each time you execute your plan, even without complete assurance of the outcome, you are casting a powerful vote for the fearless, capable identity you are determined to embody. Let me leave you with this unshakable truth. You can feel afraid and still move forward, but you cannot truly feel fearless until you do move forward. So now I say to you with all the conviction I possess, rise, act, move, not because it is always easy, but because your magnificent future self, the one who has achieved your grandest dreams, is already waiting for you on the other side of that initial motion. And when you finally meet that version of yourself, you will realize with astounding clarity that fear was never the real obstacle. Inaction was. Now, let us proceed to the master principle that governs every lasting victory and makes permanent what decisive action begins: definiteness of purpose. Every single individual who has ever risen above the suffocating clouds of fear, who has conquered the paralyzing grip of doubt, who has looked the daunting unknown squarely in the eye and moved forward anyway, has done so because of one singular, powerful, non-negotiable factor. They knew, with absolute, unwavering clarity, exactly what they wanted. They possess what I have come to call definiteness of purpose. Now, let me speak to you plainly, as directly and earnestly as I would to my own son or daughter. The person who is chronically uncertain, who possesses no clearly defined chief aim in life, who floats aimlessly between various options, who changes direction with every gust of external opinion or fleeting emotion, that person will never become truly fearless. Why? Because fear absolutely loves confusion. It thrives in the chaotic life of a person without clear direction. It grows like a weed in the cracks of ambiguity and indecision. But for the man or woman who decides fully, finally, and without a shred of apology what they want and who they will become, fear often dies an instant death. Decision is the great eliminator. It slices through the fog of uncertainty like a laser beam. It silences the cacophony of conflicting inner voices. It effectively evicts fear from the hallowed chambers of your mind. And the failure to make such clear decisions that, my friends, is the very beginning of the insidious process I call drift. I have said this before, and I will say it again now with even greater urgency and emphasis. Drift is the silent, relentless destroyer of all dreams, all ambitions, all potential for greatness. A person may survive acute pain. They may endure temporary failure and learn from it. But they will almost certainly be destroyed by the slow, creeping, almost imperceptible process of drift. It's that quiet, daily slide into mediocrity, into a life of good enough instead of great, that begins the very moment an individual refuses to make a firm, committed choice about their direction. Let me put it to you as plainly as I can. If you are not actively, consciously deciding the course of your life, you are, by default, drifting. And if you are drifting, you are not truly free. You are merely a puppet, your strings pulled by fear, a prisoner of external influences, a leaf blowing aimlessly in the wind, tossed about by every passing emotion, every unsolicited opinion, every shift in circumstance. Now listen very closely, because this is crucial. Every single man and woman I ever studied who achieved monumental success, every titan of industry, every giant of history, every leader who left an indelible mark on the world, they all shared this one indispensable trait in common: decisiveness. Not reckless impulsiveness, not thoughtless haste, but the ability to make clear, calm, final decisions, to make them relatively quickly after gathering necessary facts. And then, critically, to rarely reverse those decisions unless new, compelling evidence absolutely demanded it. Let me remind you once more of the indomitable Henry Ford. When he set his unwavering sights on creating a motor car that the common American could afford, he didn't go around asking for permission. He didn't seek validation from the army of doubters, nor did he engage in endless, fruitless debates with his skeptical peers. He made a decision, a powerful, unshakable decision, and then he proceeded to make the world adjust to that decision. As we've heard, his own engineers, the experts, told him that his vision for an 8-cylinder engine cast in a single block was a practical impossibility. Ford, with that characteristic calm intensity, looked them squarely in the eye and simply said, "Build it anyway," and eventually they did. Not because the laws of physics suddenly changed or it magically became easier, but because his absolute, unwavering decision left absolutely no room for retreat, no option for failure. Charles M. Schwab, the man Andrew Carnegie trusted to lead vast portions of his steel empire, rose to such heights not primarily through superior technical genius, but through his unwavering, almost legendary, decisiveness. In times of intense pressure, when others around him hesitated, looked for excuses, or tried to escape responsibility, Schwab consistently stepped forward. He acted. He led. And Carnegie himself? His entire colossal fortune, his world-changing impact, was built upon one single, foundational pillar: definiteness of purpose. A purpose so crystal clear, so fully embraced and internalized, that every single action he took aligned with it. Every decision he made pointed directly towards it. In Carnegie's life, there was no drift, only relentless, focused direction. Contrast that with the behavior of the average person. They hesitate. They overthink even minor decisions. They wait indefinitely to feel ready, a feeling that seldom arrives unbidden. They postpone crucial choices, waiting for circumstances to be absolutely perfect, which, of course, they never are. And in that prolonged delay, fear takes root and flourishes, doubt grows like a cancer, and precious momentum dies a slow, agonizing death. Do not let this be your story. A person aspiring to greatness, or even just to a life lived on their own terms, cannot afford to live in the nebulous land of maybe. A person must choose. And the very moment you make a clear, committed choice, a powerful, almost magical force awakens within you. A force that declares, with quiet, unshakable authority, "This is who I am now, and there is absolutely no going back." Say that aloud with me, right now, with feeling. I decide quickly and with conviction. I change my major decisions slowly, and only when overwhelming facts demand it. I act without unnecessary delay. I do not drift. I move with conscious finality. I burn the bridge of retreat behind me. Burning the bridge is not just a poetic metaphor, my friends, it is a profound success strategy. As long as you subconsciously leave open a path of retreat, a way to go back to your old ways or lesser ambitions, fear will continue to whisper its seductive lies in the dead of night. You can always go back if this gets too hard, but once you truly decide, once you metaphorically cut the ropes, slam the door shut, and eliminate all exits, you unlock a level of personal power and focus that only such absolute clarity can provide. Let me share with you one of the most vital lessons I learned through years of intensive research and countless intimate conversations with the most powerful and influential minds on this earth. Fear simply cannot dominate a man or woman who has truly, unequivocally made up their mind. It may knock on the door, it may whisper insidious doubts from the shadows, but it cannot gain entry because your unwavering decision has locked and barred all the gates. You must live this principle every single morning. Rehearse your powerful new identity every single day. Recommit to your sacred mission with renewed vigor. Do not allow fleeting emotions to dictate your steps or derail your progress. Let your conscious, committed decisions dictate them. And when that old, familiar feeling of fear inevitably rises, that hesitation, that nagging voice of the old, limited self, that immobilizing fear of failure, you must interrupt it immediately. Say with calm, unshakable certainty, I have already decided. I do not retreat. I do not entertain fear, especially when it comes disguised as logic or caution, and then, without further delay, you move. You do the thing you said you would do. Because every single time you follow through, every time you move forward without hesitation despite feeling fear, you are building a spine of pure steel within yourself. You are becoming unshakable. And soon, the world will no longer question your certainty. It will respect it, and often, it will align with it. So let me ask you, right now, what crucial decisions are you still avoiding? What old bridges of retreat must you finally and decisively burn? What clear direction must you fully commit to, without allowing the insidious habit of drift to ever return? Decide now. Decide deeply. And from this very moment forward, let your decisions move faster, with more power and conviction than your fear ever could. This is how you systematically remove fear from your life. Not by passively waiting, not by idly hoping, not by cowardly hiding, but by decisively choosing, and by walking with the fire of conviction into the magnificent person you have already declared yourself to be. Now, as we draw closer and closer to the end of our time together today, know this with every fiber of your being. Fear is no longer welcome in your house. It has robbed you of your peace, your potential, and your power for far too long. It has whispered insidious hesitation into your noblest dreams, planted poisonous doubt in your deepest convictions, and delayed the arrival of the magnificent man or woman you were always born to become. But today, right here, right now, it ends. You do not belong to fear. You are not its helpless puppet. You are not average. You are not ordinary. You are not destined to be just another person drifting aimlessly through life, vaguely hoping that things might somehow improve on their own. No! You are the builder of your thoughts, the commander of your actions, the absolute master of your decisions. And from this day forward, you will not merely act as if these things are true. You will act with the profound knowing that they already are. You are not waiting for strength to magically appear. You are actively, consciously installing it. Daily, hourly, with every powerful word you speak, every empowering repetition you engage in, every quiet, firm declaration you make to yourself when the world isn't watching. Let the old voice die a quiet death. The voice that constantly questioned, the voice that endlessly hesitated, the voice that perpetually waited for perfect timing that never arrived. That voice is no longer yours. Your new voice, the voice of your authentic, powerful self, has absolutely no room for fear. It walks with an unshakable calm. It speaks with crystal clarity. And it moves with unwavering, decisive conviction. And when resistance inevitably rises, as it surely will whenever you strive for something greater, you will not fold. You will not retreat. You will repeat. You will return to these principles. Because conscious, deliberate repetition is how ordinary individuals are forged into extraordinary beings in the white-hot fires of challenge and determination. Because repetition is the master builder of identity. And this message, this blueprint for a fearless life that you have just absorbed, is not mere entertainment. It is your personal architecture of belief. It is the foundational structure you must return to, day in and day out, until your subconscious mind knows no other rhythm, no other default setting, than absolute certainty and unwavering courage. You must return to this message, to these core truths, again and again and again. Not just once. Not only when you feel particularly weak or vulnerable. Not just when it's convenient, but every single morning as a non-negotiable ritual. Every time the world feels heavy upon your shoulders, every time that old, fearful self tries to claw its way back into your consciousness, you will revisit these words. You will speak its lines with power, you will embody its energy, until fear is not just temporarily silenced, but utterly forgotten, a relic of a past self. Until the person you may have been pretending to be, the one constrained by fear, dies quietly in the night, and the true man or woman, the one who speaks and acts with unshakable faith, rises to greet the dawn. Say it now, with all the conviction you can muster. Fear no longer lives here. I do not ask for permission to be powerful. I move with divinely inspired power. I do not repeat thoughts of fear. I repeat thoughts of strength, of courage, of certainty, until they become my very nature. This is the final word for this moment. Not because your work is over, but because your true, magnificent work is just beginning. Now go! Walk with fire in your belly and resolve in your heart. Move with unwavering discipline. Live like the extraordinary individual whom fear cannot touch, because that individual is, and always has been, the real you. Let the world around you wonder what changed. Let them feel the quiet power of your silence before you even speak. Let them witness, with awe and inspiration, what unwavering belief, forged in the crucible of daily repetition, truly becomes. You are no longer a person at the mercy of fear. You are the architect. You are the fire. You are the command. And now, you walk forward as if it is already done. Thank you for investing your precious time with me today. If these words have sparked something within you, if you're ready to join a community of fearless builders, I encourage you to like this message. Share your thoughts and commitments in the comments below, and subscribe to this channel for more insights on mastering your mind and architecting the life you truly deserve. Your journey to greatness is just beginning.